my name is Bart, and today we're back for another lap guide video in the FIA 4 car. Today we're at Watkins, Glen. Let's get into the hot lap.
That was your fastest lap of the session.
Okay, so we're heading down the main straight now before turn 1. Turn 1, I recommend 4th gear for this corner. Potentially could be taken 3rd, but 4th definitely better for the car. Braking, see where this just for the 200 board, but you've also got this bit of road here that kind of narrows up a bit as well. Also, good idea not to be fully up against the grass before then, because then you'll be braking on the grass, which isn't so good. But generally, this is a good point to be judging your braking for the 200 board. And really important here that we're really aggressive initially on the brakes, but then also bleeding out fairly quickly. So we can roll a lot of speed into the corner, and we're not kind of pushing the front tires too aggressively as we're turning in. We need to give them like a bit of space. We don't want to be putting too much load on the front tires when we're turning into the corner, and we just want to use the camber, carry a lot of speed. Quick throttle pickup once we get down to the bottom of the camber on the apex, and I like to just lean against this curve like this. If you put the floor of the car at the middle of the car over these bumps over here, you will lose a bit of lap time. Just the way this car is, it'll kind of stall on the bumps and it'll really hurt you up the hill. So just keep that in mind. Like I said last time, Watkins Glen, either run the full car wide and you're right on the edge of getting off track if you still have your right tires on the red and yellow, or this is, I find it more consistent and potentially faster as well. Just running your left tires up like this. Also, this car likes reducing distance as well. Second and third corners, just be very smooth on the steering. I like keeping it like meeting the yellow line there. Just be as smooth as possible on the steering. Don't really ride up on this curve. Can upset the car a little bit. Not going to help you much. Hold 5th gear until you get to this crest. Just as you crest, change up. Just so we don't get a bit of bogging up the hill. Keep to the right through that curve. Get over to the left-hand side of the track now, preparing for the chicane. Probably the hardest corner on the track with this car. To get right at first, you can have a very big accident if you're not driving it correctly. So let's spend a little bit of time breaking this down. So especially in the conditions this week are a little bit worse than last season at Watkins Glen. So be aware that you might have to slow the car down a bit more on the entry. I certainly find that. And on the fixed setup, which we're running here, there is no wing. Makes the car really unstable, and it won't be able to carry huge amounts of speed through the chicane, unlike if you have more downforce on the car. So you can see here, I'm lifting at this orange marker here on the left-hand side of the screen, and just before 300 ball, you've also got this white line as well. So all those things, they're enough references to get an idea of, where you want to be preparing the car for the corner. Really, I'm lifting just before I start to turn in. Also will help the car turn as well. Key things I'd say, be really straight when we hit this curb, like dead straight as much as possible. You can see the steering in the bottom left. I'm completely straight at this point. So we want to get all the turning done earlier, yeah? And we want not only the steering to be straight, but we want the car not to be moving, So even if you manage to get the steering straight, but you just kind of flicked the steering angle off, and maybe the car's still kind of laterally sliding a little bit, then it's going to be quite upset over the curb. So we want basically all the weight of the car going in a straight line in this diagonal across the track. And this angle is just so we can open up the corner as well as possible. And also take the shortest line through this section. So if we can try and get this angle, which is, like I said, this diagonal, trying to open up the double left coming up, and also getting as close to these barriers on the right-hand side as possible, being really straight, and you will need to lift on the entry. So you can't just turn in flat and then lift right here. If you do that, what happens is the car pitches as we go over the curb. The nose goes down, and then the rear wheels kind of flick up as you go up the curb, and you bounce off the other side, and the car wobbles, and it's not very nice. So you usually end up in the barrier. If you're lucky, just a bit wide. So my advice to stop that is, like I said, do your lift a bit early. You shouldn't need to brake. You can definitely start with a brake. I would recommend that to get your confidence up, build the speed up, but lift on the entry. And then you can see I get back to the throttle before I reach the curb. Now, this might seem weird because, like I said, you're like, okay, but you said to slow down the car. Yep. You have to get to some throttle to really settle the rear. If you're fully coasting, if you're lifting, the car's a lot less stable. And the weight's all on the front, and then it gets a little bit upset over the bump because it goes like that. It's not great. But if you have a little bit of throttle, the car's a lot more stable. It kind of sets over the curb. We put a little bit more weight on the rear. The car's also a lot more consistent as well. You have a lot more control of the platform then. So I would 100% recommend lifting. This is why you got to lift, I think, a bit before, so we can get to some throttle on the curb. So you can see there, get the wheel as straight as possible for this bit. A little bit of throttle. This just allows the car to settle. You see really bumpy landing, so that's why we need it to be straight. Wheel bounces a bit over the bumps. We try to keep it straight as possible. Just open out a little bit to the right as much as you can, which isn't much in this short space. Change down to fifth for the left. So that's the one thing you do on the landing is, you go on throttle and then change down to fifth. That should help you turn in. Use the left-hand curb. Get to full throttle. And gently run the car out. This is a bit of a tricky one. I mentioned this last time as well. You want to get to the left to open up this right-hander, but we can't really go all the way out, actually turn left, because we'll never make it back to the right, pretty much. We'll never make it back to the apex, and it's just a waste of time. So rather than training it, I'm going to go left to open up this right, no, it's just we're going through a left-hander now, and now we're starting this right-hand corner. And we're kind of just letting the car drift out to a nice point, getting the camber. It should be you can see here's a slight lift for me, go down to like 70% throttle. If you don't lift, you may potentially stay on the track, but you're getting a lot of understeer. The car's going to kind of just lose a lot of time. I find it's definitely faster you want to stay in this curbing on the inside, and you want to meet the end of this service road here, really important. Get really hooked up tight on this curb. Helps turn the car. Camber's really good here as well. Full throttle by that point. Let the car out over the curb. Bit of a bump, but it's okay. No track limits there. Got this little reference here we got for our braking. Pretty much bang on. Down to fourth gear for this left. I said this last time as well. Not super important all over the inside curb. Quite often, if you're on the inside curb here, especially early in the corner, it actually means you've slowed down. You've hit the brakes too early, or you've slowed the car down too much. It's quite a long corner. We need to carry momentum on this track. It's got a gradual turn. So yeah, it's okay to meet the curb out here. I'm a little bit wide of it, but I think that's honestly fine at this point as well, because it's not like a simple corner. It's quite a long corner, so we don't have to be right on that curb at that point. As long as we can pick up the throttle really cleanly and carry a lot of minimum speed, then that's the main thing. And we should just be nicely forced out to the exit of that curb. You should get a good feeling through the wheel. It shouldn't feel like I'm getting all this vibration from the front tires scrubbing. And then we go up the hill, down to fourth gear. You can do third at first. I definitely find you should be taking in fourth. It is a bit trickier because you get a lot more understeer, but that's definitely the faster way to go about it. You shouldn't really be on this outside bit of tarmac here. It's kind of a reference for this rubber, you know, how wide you're going to be. Definitely being inside of this new piece of tarmac. Braking just after the 100 board on the left. And yeah, the main thing here is meeting the white line late about here. And then we can commit to full throttle. And then use this little bit of runoff area we have up here. Tricky corner, definitely, especially with trying to look around. It's so hard to see where the exit is. Don't get sucked into being too early there or too slow on the entry. Now we've got another fourth gear corner coming out now. This right, get into the little kind of camber dip here. If you're late here, you will never ever make the inside. So that's the one thing I would say is we have quite aggressive brake. It's not very long, but you know, very efficient, but quickly bleed out. Yeah, if you don't make it into this camber early, you just run very wide and you understeer a lot. So keep that in mind. Pick up throttle as quickly as you can. You want to force the car out to use all the runoff area pretty much. Over to the right-hand side. Down to third gear. The inside curve does help rotate the car a bit. I don't like having my rear wheels all over it because it can sometimes hurt traction a little bit, but definitely can help rotate the car a little bit. Force the car out in the throttle just to use all this extra bit of track there. Not a super complicated corner, just make sure you're not being too aggressive on the rotation. It's easy to oversteer through there. Get a poor exit. This is flat out. Just being really smooth on the steering. Make it so we're not forced out. The worst thing you can probably do here is turn it a bit early and aggressively and then end up too wide, and then you will lose time bouncing over this curb. So just we want to just lean our right wheels against it. Quickly get back over to the left. That's probably, I think, a big thing for a lot of people. They're not going to work hard enough to get back to the left here. Please do. Going to really help your exit through this right, and it should be just a lift. You can see it's a full lift for me here. Just a lift through this right, then pick up the throttle again when you get back into the camber on the inside curb. Very similar to a lot of the other corners on this track. Force yourself up wide against the wall, and that takes us across the line for a lap at Watkins Glen. So that takes us to the end of the video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. And you can also check out the Coach Dave Academy Discord in the video description as well. See you next week.